it's almost like we have some foresight that we can tap into. So you were saying the internet's getting shut off over there, and then I saw some people were smuggling Starlink satellites in
Yeah.
order to get internet, which is incredible. So that's kind of like the decentralization of internet, which it's always been like these huge moguls and monopolies that have owned that, and then decentralization of information, which is social media now. So we used to have like three networks or maybe even two, and then it kind of all spikes out after that. But now we have social media, and you're like, no, this young woman lives there. This is her story. She's live streaming it. There is no misinterpretation. So that's kind of
Hmm.
I don't know, the beautiful thing about where I see the future going is like these really big inflated things starting to get broken down. And I think that's the same with a lot of religion too. Like we've had,
Yeah.
a handful of religions, and now people are kind of creating like their own beliefs and like doing the research themselves, or meditating themselves, or maybe being agnostic or atheist or whatever it is. But it's like you get to choose. You can like custom curate the life that you want. And I'm hoping that the women over there have that opportunity because I did. And I think you've brought this up, and so have so many people. It's this idea that this moral relativism, and it's good for this is fine for me and that's fine for them because they're over there. And I've heard you say, well, if this little girl wasn't brown, if she was, blonde hair, blue eyed, and she was Christian and they were doing this, would this still be okay? And I wish I wrote the statistics down, but it was something, it was alarming, and I'm sure someone else could look this up unless you might know. I need a producer for this. But the amount of young girls that go to the hospital in Western countries for FGM, and I mean, I get goosebumps. Like that's horrifying, and that's clearly illegal in the countries that it's happening, but no one's doing anything because we have this moral relativism. We're like that's their culture. Like no, who who are we to pretend that that's not okay? That's not universally wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know, do you have those numbers, like a rough number or no? I was just watching it yesterday.
I saw a statistic once that was so insane. I couldn't believe it, but it was like once every hour in the UK.
Whoa.
Yeah. And what's important to note too is that those are only the girls that have complications.
Mhm,
The girls that have complications are the ones that end up going to the doctor, end up going to the hospital. That doesn't
mhm,
even give you the numbers of girls that it has happened to. Now, chances are most of the girls would have complications because this is just being done by some random woman with a razor blade. So it's not like it's not that it would make it any, it's kind of like this, it's not like I'm advocating for it to be medicalized and sterilized, you know what
definitely
I
not.
mean? But I'm saying that the truth is it's being done just by random women with razor blades, and so the girls do end up with complications, and the ones that end up coming back to their countries, like in the West, those are the girls that could end up getting medical support. And then, like you said, their families aren't prosecuted for this. Their families are given pamphlets to educate them. You think they didn't know that taking a razor blade to their daughter's genital was a bad idea? You think
Mhm.
that they need a pamphlet to explain that to them? Like, you don't think that they knew what they were doing? Like, it's so insulting. It really is so insulting. And that's when I was saying, like, if a blonde-haired, blue-eyed couple decided that they are going to cut off their daughter's clitoris with a razor blade, nobody would be saying, "Well, they just need a pamphlet. They didn't know
Absolutely
what
not.
they were doing." Like, we would never think that they were so dumb as to not realize what they were doing. We would give them at least the benefit of, basic adult human understanding that what they're doing is a vicious act, but they're doing it because they truly believe that it's the right thing to do. And I'm going to go back to something that Sam Harris talked about before as well, because I think it's such a great analogy, where he said, we're so keen to like immediately make all of these excuses, like to say things like, oh, these parents didn't know what they were doing. Oh, they didn't understand. But if a Jehovah's Witness couple decided not to give a blood transfusion to their little girl, knowing that she would die if she didn't get a blood transfusion, and they still decided not to do it, we would understand the thought process there. We would know, okay, well, they are so brainwashed into their ideology that they have actually put their ideology above the health and the life of their own daughter. We know that. We can see that. We understand that. But when it comes to somebody Muslim doing something similar, we have all of these excuses. And like you said, all of this relativism, whether it's moral relativism or cultural relativism, which is just a fancy way of saying bigotry. You know, bigotry of low expectations is a phrase that that George Bush Jr. said at one point, and it was like, it's so perfect. That's exactly what it is. It's the bigotry of low expectations. They look at Arabs or Muslims and they're like, oh, they're just poor little brown folk. They don't know any better. Let's just give them an educational pamphlet. No, you put them in prison and you let the rest of their community know that this is what happens when you mutilate your daughter's genitals. And that's a deterrent. A pamphlet is not a deterrent. And it also shows us exactly how cheap these girls are to, whether it's, British society, Canadian society, American society, any society that's not willing to prosecute these parents and to come down hard with them, is saying, that they don't really value the life of this girl, that she's really not that important. And the fact that she's damaged for life is, you know, too bad, so sad. She happened to have been born in the wrong family from the wrong religion and the wrong culture.